I just have to say thank you to begin with for that very rousing welcome. This is the biggest room I've played in the last 3.5 years. My legal efforts wouldn't have occurred without Katie Ashby-Koppens, who is with us here tonight as well. And of course, Peter Pham, who joined us in the earlier campaigns, but had to attend to family life, a new family for him. So anyway, let me, yes, I am quite unwell, so if I do start coughing quite outrageously, just give me a few moments and then I should be able to right the ship and come back to the script, as they say. But I'll launch straight into it because time is of the essence, and I'll just see if I've got this thing working correctly. Oh yes, sorry about that. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so, okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to stand before you tonight at the Great Debate, an event that has brought together some of the most courageous voices in our nation, each of us united by one common purpose: to uncover the truth and demand accountability for the unprecedented betrayal of public trust we've witnessed in recent years. This is the name of my talk tonight, the betrayal. I do, however, note a certain absence up here on the stage. It's telling, isn't it, that Premier Roger Cook and Health Minister Amber J. Sanderson, despite their grandstanding about the safety and effectiveness of these gene-altering substances, didn't think the possibility of national DNA contamination was sufficiently worthy of their time tonight. Apparently, they couldn't muster the courage, or perhaps the evidence, to bring along their overwhelming proof that myself and my esteemed fellow presenters here are nothing more than cookers, conspiracy theorists, or amateurs in need of a crash course in knitting. Let that sink in. A Premier who, as Health Minister, actively urged and coerced parents to inject their children and babies with these substances cannot find it within himself to face the people he once led into harm's way. Instead, they hide, refusing to answer legitimate questions about the health and well-being of every Western Australian, especially the children they swore to protect. Tonight, my focus is clear: the synthetic DNA contamination in Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 drugs. This is not merely a scientific anomaly. It is a national crisis, one that affects every Australian family, every individual who place their trust in our public health system. The findings of synthetic DNA contamination are now irrefutable. From Kevin McKernan, the former Director of Research for the Human Genome Project, to David Speech's Australian lab work, to Professor Philip Buchholz, groundbreaking cancer research in South Carolina, and now the world's leading molecular biologist and also Doctor of Medicine, Dr. Didier Ruart, together with Dr. Jessica Rose, Dr. David Wiseman, Dr. Maria Gucci, Professor Koenig, Bridget, and we've heard German colleague Dr. Jürgen Kirchner. Each has confirmed the presence of excessive levels of synthetic DNA contamination in the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 products, vials spanning the globe, and therefore contamination affecting the global population. Kevin McKernan's research, way back in February of 2023, the 16th of February to be exact, was when Kevin first transmitted to the world, Houston, we have a problem. On that day, Kevin stepped forward to say, in effect, the world appears to have been injected with excessive levels of synthetic DNA contamination. Dr. Speech corroborated these findings in Australian vials, finding levels up to 150 times above old regulatory limits for naked DNA. Professor Koenig confirmed similar numbers in Germany, and Didier Ruart's team recently found strikingly similar contamination in France. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a regional issue, it is a global catastrophe. Let me share one particularly chilling finding from Professor Bockholt's research. This contamination is not merely present, it integrates into natural human DNA. Worse, recent studies, that's by Kevin and his crew, suggest it may also self-replicate. I must say that term again and slowly. Self-replicate. This stuff is living independently. We are potentially dealing with a biogenic time bomb, a contamination capable of altering human genomes with devastating consequences forever. In Australia, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, the TGA, the very body tasked with ensuring the safety of our medical products, has failed us miserably. On October 18, the TGA released a statement dismissing these findings as misinformation. But this statement has been systematically dismantled in a thorough analysis co-authored by investigative journalist Rebekah Barnett alongside scientists and legal experts. That analysis highlights 14 separate false or misleading claims made by the TGA. And who within the TGA has stepped forward to defend this statement? No one. No names, no credentials, just facialist bureaucracy hiding behind its logo. Contrast that with the calibre of scientists who have raised the alarm: McKernan, Rose, Gigi, Wiseman, Koenig, Kirchner, Speecher, Raoult, Buckholtz, and many more, and many others, with their names on the public record. The disparity is glaring. Yet, instead of engaging with these experts, our government doubles down on deflection. Health Minister Mark Butler did not address the evidence presented by Russell Broadbent in his October 29 letter. Instead, his Chief of Staff, a bureaucrat with no scientific expertise, responded with yet another echo of the TGA's discredited statement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not incompetence. It is a deliberate cover-up. This crisis is compounded by our legal system's complicity. The federal court is actively suppressing the GMO case, a legal battle that exposes how these drugs meet the definition of genetically modified organisms under Australian law, which, while being serious criminal offences on the part of Pfizer and Moderna, involves in the result the injecting of GMOs into millions of Australians without their giving informed consent. This is wholesale medical negligence that falls at the feet of the Liberal and Labor parties and Butler's Health Department. But instead of hearing more on those issues, we instead have to deal with Justice Helen Roth's recent actions to obstruct this case, a chilling reminder of the erosion of judicial independence in this country. And when complaints were lodged against Justice Roth, Chief Justice Deborah Morder dismissed them without meaningful inquiry, or, in the view of the reasonable onlooker, another cover-up. This is not justice, it is a betrayal of our democratic principles, the betrayal and destruction of the doctrine of separation of powers, and a wholesale burning to ashes of the social contract. Thankfully, there are glimmers of hope. Local councils like the town of Port Headland, West Tamar, Ceduna have taken bold steps, passing motions to inform their communities and health practitioners of these contamination findings. They have called on the Prime Minister to suspend these drugs and launch an independent investigation. Our other councils are soon to follow in their footsteps. This grassroots momentum must grow. Every council in this country has a legal, ethical and moral duty to act to protect their communities where the federal government has failed and continues to intentionally fail them, indeed abandon them. So every Australian must join the effort, writing to councils, joining organisations. There we go. Let me catch up here. Joining organisations like Australians for Science and Freedom and Inform Me and demand change. That's a shout out to you, Chloe Geddes. So where do we go from here? First, these drugs must be suspended immediately. Next, an independent inquiry, free from government interference, must confirm the extent of the contamination. All retained samples must be tested, and every Australian who received these drugs must be informed and monitored, and every available medical treatment made available when needed. Lastly, we need systemic reform. Canberra has become a malignant force, prioritising political expediency, foreign influences and the wishes and demands of unelected organisations over public welfare. These entities, met with disdain, loathing and distrust by Australians, appear to serve commercial interests and totalitarian outcomes before ever considering, let alone prioritising, the wishes of the Australian people. It is time to rethink the role of the federal government in our lives. As a nation, we must reclaim our sovereignty, our health and our democracy. To those in this room and the thousands watching online, let me say this: inaction is complicity. Every day that we wait, we let this betrayal deepen. The stakes could not be higher. This is about the health and future of our children, the survival of our freedoms, and the very essence of what it means to be Australian. History will judge this generation by what we do right now. If we choose to stay silent, to stay seated, we leave our children a legacy of cowardice and neglect. But if we rise, if we fight for the truth, if we demand accountability, if we reclaim our democracy, we give our children something far greater, a chance at a future defined not by betrayal, but by courage and conviction. The time for waiting has long passed. The time for action is now. Write to your councils, demand they protect their communities, join hands with those who are stepping forward, often at great personal cost, to speak the truth. Challenge the disgusting silence of Canberra and let the echo of your voices shake the walls of every institution that has failed us. We are not just fighting for answers. With the many contamination results, the need for answers has nearly passed. What is now required is action. But in the process, this fight, this war, to see honesty prevail and the sick and wounded and dead cared for and future generations protected, we are fighting for the soul of our nation and for every generation that follows. Thank you.
Julian, before you go and we bring up our next guest, what's astounded me about you in particular and others like some of the politicians that who have championed our cause, Jared Rennick in particular, he's a finance guy. The amount of delving that you've had to do, the research you've had to do to uncover the things you've uncovered, I can't believe that you've had to extend your knowledge so far about virology and all the other sciences involved. Has this gone deeper than you thought in your wildest dreams at the very beginning of this journey for you?
I'm not surprised. Many people don't know that I'm actually a dropout medical student. And prior to that, I also studied what's called in the trade nuclear biology. And that's everything to do with what goes inside, happens, inside the nucleus of cells. And when I got the first whiff of something going wrong with these vaccines in 2021, realising that they were completely out of date, and then started scratching around and seeing all these genetic components to them, I thought, holy crap. And so it's unfortunately nearly every alley that we suspected would go down, it's gone down there. And then we were saying, the legal team, Katie and Peter and myself, were saying in early 22, watch excess deaths. We couldn't make that call then, but then it became public and official. And the idea of genetic integration and the idea of self-replicating, well, we made those calls internally, and unfortunately it's all coming true. We are fortunately assisted by some of the world's greatest scientists, and Kevin McKernan is just amazing, and there's a lot more work going on there in the background, many more announcements to be made in due course when the science is steady enough to present, so it can't be trolled and pulled down. So it's our new reality, and we can't escape it. We just have to adapt to it. We've got plenty of good medical friends who are here to help us do that in this country as well.
God bless you, Julian. Thank you so much. Give him a hand.